Welcome, everyone. Jeff Gabor has agreed to do this awesome webcast where he's going to talk about his shot in the AnimSchool Animation Principles lecture video. And hopefully you've all seen that. But Jeff, right now, he can't really show and break down his work at a film studio, right? Copyright issues start to poke in really fast when you start dealing with studio work. So we thought it'd be awesome if we did our own content where it's just, what happens if you let animators completely loose to do whatever they want. And so what we can do now is, take a close look at this stuff. We're gonna have the Maya scene open. We're gonna spin around. We're gonna be able to really analyze it.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and we're gonna just start diving into the workflow of the actual shot that I did. So I wanted to first talk about exactly how I started, and it was taking a look at the layout that I was provided. So I'm gonna just go ahead and scrub some of that video so I can talk about that. So this was the layout I was provided, and we tried to emulate like Blue Sky as much as possible in terms of like the layout and the timing and our workflow. So here was the layout. It's super rough, just spliny poses and giving the rough idea. And even the idea has changed near the end in terms of like there's not this button at the end anymore of this large apple falling. So I just took a look at this just roughly for, okay, the idea and the timing, pitched a quick idea with Greg Rizzi, which he did a lot of the back and forth with me earlier on because I think he did the layout. So it was like, okay, we're not going to do the button in the end, probably just end it nicely because we're going to use that as a transition. I think there's another shot in that, he gets squashed, so we didn't need that button anymore. So from what I do there is I think a lot of people think I just jump straight into like shooting reference, and that's definitely not what I would recommend. So I wouldn't jump straight actually into shooting reference because it's important to take a look at your set. And it really is vital to check out the props around, to check out the environment, to check the spacing of how far someone needs to walk, how many steps it takes, because you're going to use all that information actually when you shoot reference, because you want to make sure your reference is absolutely as good as possible. So that's what I did here. I wanted to know how many steps it took to get to the apple, how close he was to the apple. So I'm taking it and going into Maya and spinning that camera around and getting very familiar with what I can do. When he stands up, how close is he to the branches? Can he really stand up? Can he jump up? Can he do all that stuff? So I'm able to test all that stuff. And yeah, so my ideas do change all the time. This was pretty free and pretty open in terms of what I could do. So I wanted to make sure I had all my options there. So once I do that and look around the set, I do what at least I call is an appeal test or a pose test. So I know what is appealing for the character. And I started getting in the habit of this because characters like Sid from Ice Age, he really only looks good from like a 3/4 angle. Certainly if you make him look down or make him look way, way, way up or profile, especially profile and down, he's just not appealing. Like he loses that very like triangular shape to him. So I started taking that in with a lot of other characters, that characters just simply look better in certain views. You can even look at like Family Guy or a lot of 2D Flash type drawings or animations today. They look best from a certain view, and that's all you'll ever see him. Who knows what Stewie really looks like from a side view? He just looks like a weird football with a little triangle nose. You're just not going to see that, so you're never going to do that. Let me share that with you. A quick, what is my pose test? So really, I just went into the same layout file, and it all looks basically the same, except for right here. I just went to this one frame and played with the character, tried to learn the controls, get familiar with him, what he would look like if he's scared. Like I know he just got hit in the head with the apple. What does he look like when he's looking around? Get familiar with his wrists, get familiar with how close his body can get with the tree, and playing with the slope of his face, like opening up one side of his eyes by taking like the top half of his head and bending it over, taking the bottom half of his head and bending it, and getting very familiar with what makes him appealing, what angle he looks best at, and all that. So that way I can start my reference from that position and know, okay, that's my mark, like an actor's mark, say on the stage. Like I know where to go. So in this case, I only did this one, but in a lot of other animations I do, maybe when a character is walking and talking or has to go from point A to point B and maybe another point in the middle, I'll do all those quick tests just to see what's really, really appealing and what I know, like if he gets to this part of the scene, he should look or he should stage himself this way, or have this foot forward as opposed, or this hand gesturing, whatever. So that's really, really important to take into the reference room, okay? So I did that as well here. Yeah, so in terms of how much time that would take, pose tests usually take maybe something like 2 hours, like spin around the camera, do some quick pose and tests like that. They're usually pretty quick and dirty, and I don't spend too much time because I know I'm going to throw them away. There's no chance of those poses making it into my final animation because I know once I get into the acting room, I'm going to find better stuff or more appealing poses, or things are just going to be switched up slightly. So those are really just for me. They're quite literally my thumbnails. Matt asked if we had a particular style, and yeah, it had been brought up enough about how this is sort of a riff on the Goofy shorts. So even before starting any of this, I went ahead and watched a few of those, and I didn't really pay attention too much of Ichabod, but it was just more the Goofy stuff. So using that as, I guess, as a style guide, but to be completely honest, there's just not always a million hours in the world. So we kind of did what we could and went as fast as we could on this short. So creating like style guides and this is the best looking smile, this is the best looking this and that we kind of didn't necessarily do that on this. It was more left up to the individual animators to come up with their style. And I think that's actually what's really brilliant about watching the whole ensemble that was created in the final, because you can see individual animators' take on what the character looks like and what they find is appealing. And I don't know, it's interesting to see a lot of professionals have completely different opinions on what they find is appealing. And it would be up to the final supervisor or the director to say, yes, I see that, yes, I see that, but that's my character, that's what I love.